So if you're like me, you might find yourself scrolling around flightsim.to looking at the newest and most trending add-ons. One of them that sticks out at the moment is the Bombardier Global 6000 and Bombardier E11A, two aircraft based on the same aircraft, one being a passenger variant, one being a military variant. But is it worth your time? It's an FSX converted model. Well, in today's video I'll be talking about it. So without further delay, let's get right into it. If you're new around here, be sure to like, comment and subscribe to stay up to date with the most important Microsoft Flight Sim news, updates, reviews and everything in between. By pressing that little red button, you'll never miss a bit of Microsoft Flight Sim news again. Let's talk about this interesting aircraft now. Now first of all, if you want to try it for yourself, you can download it with the link down below. It's on flightsim.to, which I'm sure many of you have experience with. What exactly is it? Well, it's basically a big private jet. It's a business jet made by the Canadian manufacturer Bombardier. Now, as I said at the start, you do get two variants. You get the Global 6000, which is a big business jet, and then you get the E11A, which is basically a highly modified version of that, used by militaries, such as the United States Air Force, and I believe the RAF used it as well under the name Sentinel. Although I do think they differ slightly. Anyway, you get those two variants. All that really separates them in this version, I guess, is the external model. So let's talk about that first. The external model is from FSX, but hey, it looks pretty good. I guess Microsoft Flight Sim has done it some justice, because lighting looks really awesome on it. Especially at the time of dusk, it looks absolutely beautiful. I believe the model was made by Iris Simulations about 9 years ago, according to the developer on the download page. But hey, I have to say it's held up pretty well for its time. All animations have been moved over nicely, external animations anyway, from reverse thrust, which looks pretty good, to flaps, to spoilers, to lighting. It looks pretty good from the outside. Gear also very nice. Externally, it's pretty nice to look at. Certainly could do with a bit of a texture update, but hey, it's pretty good, it's certainly acceptable, and for a fun little freeware aircraft, it does the trick. The cockpit, however, well, I'd have to say don't spend too much time in there. It doesn't look too good in my opinion. It does the trick, you know, you can start it up, you can look at some displays, everything moves, but of course it's not based on real life. Clearly, this is a sort of halfway house between taking a default Microsoft Flight Sim cockpit and using it, and slightly modifying it. I mean, kudos to the developer, he could have done what everyone else done, and put, I don't know, a cetacean cockpit in there, but at least we do get some variation here, although it doesn't look too good. It doesn't look good at all, to be perfectly honest, so I do hope the developer works on it, but being a freeware project, you know, he's done enough already, theoretically, so you can't really complain too much here. He certainly put more effort into this than I have. The cockpit is not meant to realistically portray the real aircraft, as the developer says, so don't go in expecting it to be like it. Moving on from that, the flight model is also not similar to real life. I sort of think parts of it incorporate the 747 flight model. Just from what I'm feeling anyway, I might be completely wrong there, but at times this aircraft can feel quite heavy. And hey, you can actually land it. It lands pretty nicely, I'd say. This is my first landing, and as you can see, you know, despite the rather long runway and the threshold being displaced quite a bit, you know, it was a pretty nice aircraft to land. And if you ignore the cockpit and focus most of your time on the outside, it looks pretty nice. And one thing I'd say about having a unique cockpit, it means it sort of opens up the way for this to improve, more so than using a sort of a Sobo cockpit. So I guess the developer is in with this aircraft for the long term, and I just hope he keeps up the good work. Now sounds, I've got to be honest, I can't really work out whether they're from Microsoft Flight Sim or whether they're from the FSX model. Some of them sound like they've been brought over from FSX, others sound like their default Microsoft Flight Sim sounds, but once again I'd say they're acceptable. You know, there's certainly nothing that makes this aircraft seem payware level, but that's not what we're going in for. We're going in expecting a slightly unique experience, and admittedly you do get that. It's still very early days for this project, but it's certainly a pretty nice business jet, and for that I do recommend it. Although the cockpit doesn't look good, the flight model not too realistic either, but hey, it is what it is. Don't go in with high expectations, go in with expectations of this being a model someone's done on their free time in a way that sort of differs from another business jet experience, because that's certainly what you're getting. It doesn't feel like a cetacean, it doesn't look like a cetacean, it doesn't fly like a cetacean, so it's always nice to see something different. And indeed, in the future, if this is continually worked on, it could be pretty good. Now, aside from the business jet variant, you get a NASA variant, and indeed the military variant, so at least you've got some sort of unique selling points there. We don't often see too many military aircraft of this sort of type in Microsoft Flight Sim, so I guess that's a good thing. I'm not going to give it a rating because I basically think it's too early days to get one. If the developer keeps up with it, it certainly could do well, and you can use working title G3000 avionics with it to increase your system depth. As I said throughout this video, this aircraft is not meant to simulate the real world aircraft. As the developer says on the website, he doesn't know what the aircraft flies like, so he can't necessarily portray it accurately. I guess it's really good that the developer is honest here. I do think a lot of the times in the flight simulation community, people overpromise and underperform, so I think this is probably the best approach to do, and it just depends on if he uses his free time to expand this project and maybe turn it into something a bit more realistic, but aside from that, it's ready to download, so why not, give it a try. It's always nice to see something new in Microsoft Flight Sim, that's certainly what we're getting here. It might not be worth your time, you know, the cockpit isn't great, but it's different, and I think that's what's important. So thank you to the developer and all the previous developers on FSX for basically allowing us to see this sort of aircraft in the sim. It's a different experience. I hope you guys have liked this video. I know it's been slightly more casual, it hasn't been structured like most of my normal videos, but I hope you've learned something. Tell me down below if you'll be picking up this aircraft. I would say I'd recommend it for a bit of fun, but not if you're going in with expectations of this being a study level aircraft, because quite frankly it's nowhere near. From me today, that is all. Last thing I want to say is if you want to support this channel, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and check out my Amazon affiliate links down below for all the stuff I use to fly, film and edit. But from me today, that is all. Have a fantastic day. Bye bye.